Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Here.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. And Alderman Nguyen. We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you for everyone. Eduardo Gomez is sitting in for Clerk Reed tonight. Eduardo is the Deputy City Clerk. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday, September 23rd, 2019 Evanston City Council meeting. It's a beautiful night out there tonight. Our Chicago Bears are playing. Last I checked, they were winning 7-0 over the Redskins. Alderman Suffredin is here. He's walking up. So we have everybody here tonight. And I've got a couple announcements. The first one is, last night I joined 160 people to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the American Legion Evanston Post 42. If you haven't been to Post 42, it's much more than a place to listen to some of the finest bluegrass music in the country or to enjoy a beer or two on the patio, although it's a great place for both of those. Post 42 is a place where service to the community and the country come before self. It's a place where the principles of democracy and freedom and justice are safeguarded and transmitted to future generations. It's a place where bonds are formed, memories are preserved, friendships are made, and stories are shared. Last night we heard stories of service and sacrifice and honor. It was a powerful reminder that our way of life, no matter how messy it seems at times, is due to the extraordinary sacrifice and service of millions of men and women who put their country before themselves. It was a very, very moving ceremony, and I congratulate the American Legion Post 42 for 100 years of service to the country and to this community. It's a great place, and if you haven't been there, I suggest you stop by. Second item that I have is tonight's it's a bittersweet meeting because tonight is the end of an era, and I'll refer to it as the Bobkowitz era of Wally Bobkowitz serving as our city manager and leading this great city of ours for 10 years. What I'd like to, that's worth a clap, that absolutely. What I'd like to do tonight is I'd like to open the mic to members of the Evanston City Council if they'd like to make some remarks. There has been a nice sort of celebration of all that Wally has done for the city and his team has done for the city over the last 10 years. So I don't think we need to, go through that again. There was a really nice farewell on Friday with the city employees and stuff, but there hasn't been an opportunity for any of the members of the council who would like to make a few remarks, and then I'll wrap it up at the end, and then I have something for Mr. Bobkowitz. We'll start with Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and gee, Wally. So Alderman Wilson and I are what's left of, I think, 5 of us who came on the council together in 2009, and our first big thing that we did was hire Wally. And it was, Wally was our first choice, and I think we were so pleased and happy to have him. And I remember when we came to our first meeting, when we were still discussing the city manager candidates, we were coming in with roll carts of packets for city council meetings, thousands of pages long, and it looked like we were headed to the airport. Well, Wally quickly took that in hand with our IT department, and now we arrive with our iPads, and everything you ever need to know about the city is contained in a very, very small space and accessible to everyone. So the big things that have happened here, I mean, we've really transformed into what was for years just kind of an old-fashioned sort of city government into a lean, sleek, transparent, engaged community of elected officials and citizen members, and we get a lot done in a very short period of time. And that's not only saved us a lot of money, but it saved a lot of trees in the way. But more than that, I think that the thing I'm most impressed with is that Wally is the person that he presented himself to us back in 2009. And to me, that consistency of not only vision, but also responsiveness, dedication to the community, the way he handles himself at work, is extraordinary to me. I mean, I've worked in a lot of places with a lot of people over time, and I absolutely think that Wally is an incredible city manager, and we've been so lucky to have him. Have we disagreed from time to time? Of course we have. And Wally's let me disagree with him, and I've let him disagree with me, and we've had really good conversations about it. But in the end, we're all here representing the citizens of Evanston, and I've never doubted for 1 minute that that was what Wally was doing. And I'm so sorry that you're leaving, Wally. I love our staff that you've put together. I know that we'll be okay, but you're going to be really missed. I've warned you that I'm going to come out and be a goat herd in Issaquah. I'm not kidding. If you haven't Googled goats in Issaquah, go Google that right now and look at the video, because I'm going to go out and do that. But Issaquah is very lucky to have you, Wally. And the challenges that are there, I think, you're particularly well suited for, because it's a growing community and needs what we needed in 2009, and where you've brought us, which is night and day from where we all started. So thank you for these 10 years. You told us we would have 10 years of you, and that's, again, you certainly have delivered on that. And I think we all need to sort of settle back and put our differences aside and realize really how fortunate we've been. So thank you, Wally, so much. We'll miss you.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Wilson?
Thank you. And
I thought he was just going to go down the.
Oh,
we can do that.
People were putting lights on, so I was just going with that. I was just going that way. So we got Wilson, and then Bruce Simmons, and then Wynn.
you're the best city manager I ever worked with, but somebody might notice that you're the only city manager I ever worked with. But I started with Alderman Fisk, as she mentioned, and you get into a job like this, you have passion, you see needs, you think things aren't being addressed or should be addressed, and the fact of the matter is there's an awful lot that you don't know. You don't really know how to do the job. You don't really know what the expectations are. And, more significantly for me, when I started the job, I couldn't find information I needed to do the job. And one of the things I've learned being up here is that we often hear from people about what they want all day long. We want this, we want this, we want this. What you don't always hear from people about is what they need or what is needed. And you've really been great about pushing us to focus on needs, whether it's from the human perspective or the human level to the infrastructure needs. And a lot of times that stuff isn't very interesting. New water mains and sewers are not that interesting, but we will never be Flint, Michigan. That will never happen in our community. And the commitment that you've demonstrated for our community is, to me, it's an unprecedented level of commitment. You are available and have been available 24/7. People don't, I think, understand or appreciate that. I've gotten calls from you in the middle of the night. I've gotten calls from you from the other side of the world. You are always on, and to that point, I want to thank your family, because you've enabled him to always be on and available for us. And I know that presents a significant challenge. So that's hard for you. You're raising a young child. The time you give to us is time that you don't have to do other things. And that commitment means a lot to me. And I think it means a lot to our community. And I don't think people fully understand and appreciate that level of commitment. Another thing that I think, participating in other things around the country, we enjoy an unprecedented level of transparency. I know that there are a lot of conversations about that, but going back to when I started this job, again, I couldn't find information. We have so much that's available on the city website. We have so much that's available at any time, and that is really incredible. We publish, I was at a session, people were talking about, we tell people how much every job makes. And I said, well, we tell people how much every single person makes. So people were, when we had these conversations in other communities, they were absolutely stunned with how much we do and our level of engagement. The budget process, same thing. So we've made light years of progress. This city is reinvigorated, rejuvenated, and just, it was always a joy to be here, but it's even more so. And, people are, desperate to get here, stay here, and come here. And I think you had a lot to do with that. So I'm very grateful. I'm going to miss you a lot. I'm going to miss you as a city manager. I'm going to miss you as a trusted counsel and friend. And we wish you the very best on your next step and your next endeavors.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons, and then Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you. City Manager Bobkowitz. My first engagement with you was years ago with, as an advocate, a small business advocate, fighting for local folks and minority folks to get contracts with the city. And I remember then thinking how much you make me feel heard. And you are always very professional and consistently professional. And as a youngish Black woman in a male-dominant, white-dominant industry, that was not something that I enjoyed much. And so to come in as a council person, you have continued that level of professionalism. Always been responsive, always been sensitive to the needs that I have, which are the needs of the ward and the folks that I serve. And you've made every effort to make sure that I have the support from staff that I need to reach my goals. And you've always been responsive, same thing. It doesn't matter what time or day or night or where you are in the world, you have always responded to my expectations. And you've even helped me raise my expectations of our staff and this process. Even when I've had really ambitious goals, like one that I'm pursuing now, you made me comfortable and confident in pursuing it and not reducing my standard because of how uncomfortable a situation or a goal may be. So I just want to thank you for the professional relationship that we've had. I credit you for some of my professional development over the 10 years that you've been here. It's helped me grow as a professional, and it's helped me grow as a public leader. And congratulations and all the best to you in your new role.
Thank you, Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Nguyen, then Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I was thinking about what to say tonight, sometimes I write a couple things down or scribble things down, and my list kept getting longer and longer of what to say. And so if I look at notes, it's because there's so much to acknowledge. Like Alderman Rainey, actually, I think Alderman Rainey has served under more city managers than I have. I've been an alderman, well, we've had 3 city managers, and if they may have been city managers, but you really are the best city manager this city has ever had, Wally, by a light year. When I think of all of the differences, as my other colleagues have referred to, between 2009 and 2019, you think of 2009, Evanston was pretty with it, not compared to today. There are so many things that are different here in Evanston because of you. There are so many things that are seen and unseen that so many people in the community don't know about. I wrote a few down. The relationship that we have with Northwestern is so dramatically different, and that's because of both President Shapiro and Mayor Tisdall, but also critically of you as well. You had a better understanding of where we could be with Northwestern and helped guide that. That's something that many people in the community don't realize, and it is so different than it was back then. We were really at loggerheads. When Wally started, we did not have anyone who would be our intergovernmental relationship person. That was something that I always wondered about. I'd worked in DC. How do you not have a liaison to other governmental agencies or bodies? Wally hired one, and wow, what a difference. Suddenly, we had regular conversations with the CTA, the RTA, Springfield, and we went down to Springfield and let them know who Evanston really is. And that was something that you started. And we have a voice down there. They know who we are. And our leadership on the North Shore has really dramatically changed. Other communities and municipalities look to us now. They need us to get involved in order to have things happen for all of us in Springfield. That did not exist really before. And our relationship with the federal government is very different. Once again, we did not really have a regular interaction. Of course, we knew our representatives, but it was Wally who said to the mayor, Mayor Tisdall, we got to get on a plane. We got to start visiting. And many people don't realize that we were the only community anywhere near our size that got $18 or $19 million in NSP2 funds to help us recover after the foreclosure crisis. No other city our size got remotely that amount of money. And that was Wally and Mayor Tisdall going to Washington and saying, you should know about Evanston. When I think about sustainability, when my husband and I moved here in 1988, Evanston, we all thought we were so green because we had that first recycling center that was ever built in Illinois. And, we were just resting on those environmentally aware green laurels. And then I remember, shock of shocks, Arlington Heights was actually on some list doing so much better than we were. It's like, how could Arlington Heights be green? That's not true. And Wally got here and he said, we need to figure out sustainability. And it's under Wally's leadership that we have a sustainability coordinator. We have, working with our citizens, we have a climate action recovery plan that wins accolades that we actually are doing something. We can look our children in the face when they say they're going off on a climate strike. We can join them. That's something that we didn't have. We were not really going anywhere. And that's under Wally's leadership. And it's now part of, the air we breathe, literally. And then I think of other things that Wally does, his level of innovation. This is something that Alderman Fisk referred to. Wally doesn't have a piece of paper on his desk, not a single piece of paper. He is so tech savvy, and he's made all of us aware of the importance of tech and has really transformed our city government in that way. It's allowed us to be so much more transparent than we ever were because we put it all on our website. And he's always pushing the staff for best practices. What are best practices? If we don't know how to do it, then let's look someplace else. And that is constant. It's always essential, reaching for excellence. And while you have made me a much better alderman because of the level of excellence that you strive for, and set it as an example. But I want to add one final element that the community may not be aware of, although you're in contact with the city regularly. And I think this may be, Wally, your best quality by just a smidge, because you have so many good ones. And it's your eye for talent and your skill at recruiting excellent staffers. And then the really unusual quality that you have of helping those people that you hire achieve their potential. The staff that we have here in the city right now is just second to none. And I think that we all get a little bit too used to that, to realize how talented this group is. And it's because you have made it an interesting, challenging place for these high-quality people to work and to stay here. And that's a legacy that you're going to leave that that's about the only thing about your leaving that I'm happy about, that you've left this amazing team. So there are so many things that are different about Evanston and will continue to be that way going on into the future. You've set a standard for us, and I think that we're going to work hard and we're going to follow that standard. And I do want to say particularly, I know I've gone on a long time, thank you to Patrice and to Little Wally. It is harder than any of us realize to be married to someone who is really on duty 24/7 and has 10 bosses. And you have done it so gracefully. And we wish you the best in Issaquah. And you'll be seeing us. We'll be visiting. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Wally.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Braithwaite, and
thank
then
you.
Alderman Ravel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Wally, back 2011, I think, is when I started, and the first, I think, big thing that we tackled was the Dempster Dodge TIF. And I remember you responding to my frustration of just wanting to get things done, and I thought that that was a huge opportunity, and you directed the staff to make it happen. And myself and the mayor, just last week, we were there at the ribbon cutting for Blink Fitness, and the week before that, I think it was the Youth Job Center. So here we are, Moran Center, thank you. So here we are 10 years later, and a shopping center that was, I mean, damn near vacant with Dominic's gone. 10 years later, I mean, it's full, and a lot of that has to do with your leadership and directing staff. So I just want to say thank you for that. And there was another real huge thank you that I don't think you'll get the credit for. And, you know, we'll remember, some of us on council, when we went through a period of times when there was a lot of violence in town. And under the mayor's leadership, Alderman Holmes, there was a need to really change how we develop, you know, how we administer our youth services. And I think that's when I saw your greatest creativity and trust in staff. And Joe McCray, Pastor Cherry, Kevin Brown, now under the leadership of Lawrence Hemingway, I mean, you were very intentional about the resources. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all those families, because it really made a difference in our town. And I don't think you received the credit that you deserved. It's no secret that we've had a couple of knockdown fights, but I think out of that, I can say that I've learned, and you've learned, just how to disagree and stay focused on the same goals. And I think we could probably teach people like how to disagree and still stay focused on some goals. I mean that. To Patrice, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing them. It is a tough job, and you've been very gracious every time I see you with a smile. So I wish you nothing but the best of luck in your future. Travel prayers for safe travels and whatever you do in the future, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Ravel and Alderman Rainey.
Well, I certainly want to echo everything that my colleagues have said so far. You've really been an excellent city manager, and I've really enjoyed working with you. You've always provided really good support to me as an alderman. I think the first challenge that came my way was the Ryan Field West parking lot issue, and particularly the question of whether we were going to get the alley paved there. And you were behind me really pushing and saying, now's the time to really work on this. And, if you're going to make it happen, now is the time. So you really were a wonderful coach and helped me get started in my job as alderman. I would especially like to echo something that Alderman Nguyen said about the really great staff team that you have put together for us. It is, as Alderman Nguyen said, a really wonderful legacy that you're leaving us. So just a really terrific staff, always so supportive and responsive, and always helping me come up with the answers to address the questions and concerns that that we're bombarded with from our constituents. You've done a wonderful job anticipating our future needs and really making Evanston a leader in so many areas. And the one that, of course, is dearest to my heart is sustainability. You've really put us on the map in terms of our achievements in that area. So I'm going to miss our coffee get-togethers, and really wish you all the best in Issaquah.
Thank you, Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Yes. Well, I've lived through 5 city managers, and I agree with Alderman Nguyen. Wally is by far the most excellent city managers. So tonight we heard that Evanston is a mosaic, that Evanston is magical, and Wally sent us a link to a Crane article where we're also hipsterbia. In other words, we're an urban hipsterbia. And we're all those things because Wally dragged us kicking and screaming into that era. I've spoken 2 or 3 times now at events for Wally's leaving, but I've not talked about his work with me personally in my ward. And I want to just remind people that the 8th Ward has really been sort of the orphan ward over the years before Wally came. The 8th Ward only has one border that borders other wards in the city of Evanston. My western border is not Evanston. It's really the Water Reclamation District. It's sort of like Skokie or Lincolnwood. I'm not sure what it is, but it's the Water Reclamation District. My eastern border is Chicago, and my entire southern border is Chicago, Rogers Park, that I love dearly, and only my northern border is Evanston. So I don't have a lot of interaction with Evanston neighbors from other wards. So we were forgotten for a long time, and my constituents always reminded me that the 8th Ward never gets anything. And now lately I've been accused of getting too much, and that's all Wally's fault. And I will never be able to express to him how grateful I am. When he came here, he asked me, what did I need, what did I want? And I said, well, if you look at Howard Street, it's full of vacant buildings, and it's dirty, and there's just nothing I can do with it. And he said, well, what do you want? What do you need? I said, well, I want to get control of some of the buildings. And he said, well, how would you do that? I said, the city has to buy them. He supported the purchase of 5 buildings on Howard Street. And today, those 5, and there was a lot of opposition to that. And we purchased those buildings with tax increment financing dollars. And today, a couple of those buildings have celebrated their 5th and 6th anniversary, getting ready to celebrate their 6th and 7th anniversary, and they're very successful. And one is Ward 8 and one is Peckish Pig, and they've both received every award you can possibly get locally for dining and liquor. One was the first brew pub in Evanston. We got criticism, but Wally supported it. The patio at Peckish Pig, which is really, and I'm sure Amy Morton won't mind taking a back seat to this, but it is the best patio in the entire city of Evanston. We also built the first new parking lot right on Howard Street. One of the buildings we purchased, we knocked down and built a parking lot. I mean, none of this, you know, one of Wally's biggest faults is he doesn't take any credit. In fact, he sometimes gives credit where it's not due. It's really due to Wally. Really it is. He has been the driving force behind, very quietly, but behind many major accomplishments in this town. I think one of the most important things to know is that in the time he's been here, since we've been working on Howard Street, which wasn't, of course, the first year he got here, but we were setting the groundwork, there have been 12 purchases of new businesses and new owners between Ridge Avenue and the tracks on Howard Street, of people who saw what he was behind the scenes, what Johanna Neiden, me, and the Economic Development Department was pulling off, that came in, and this is what happens with the TIF if it's working correctly. The private sector caught on, the fire caught on, and they bought into it. They didn't need any money from us. They saw that they could be successful. So we have 12, including the few that we purchased, 12 new owners that are doing just fine. So I mean, I think it's been just a huge success, and I really, really congratulate Wally. He made that a success, and there's just no two ways about it. There's nothing. He can't deny it. You know that, Wally. And so I was pretty much a failure until he got here. And now, I mean, really, everybody, really, the Eighth Ward thanks you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming.
I will just.
One more thing. He let it, Northlight is not the only performing arts theater in the city of Evanston. Who would have ever thought that Howard Street would have the only performing arts theater on a street in the city of Evanston right now? So we're glad to help out Northlight with anything they need, but we are the performing arts theater in the city of Evanston. And Wally made that happen too. Thank you, Wally.
Thank you. Alderman Fleming.
Well, Alderman Rainey has said it all. So what I will just say is congratulations on your new position. Patrice, I will say congratulations on getting back to where your family is. I know how important that is, particularly with a small child. And I also thank you for never complaining about the late night calls when there's a fire or whatever else when Wally's calling us. One thing I will add is, like Alderman Ruth Simmons said, I had a similar experience when I was here as an intern many years ago, and started to meet with Wally to talk about racial equity. So that was probably 6 years ago, or maybe not 6, and he was very kind to listen to me and tell him all these things I thought we should be doing, and it has taken now 5 years for us to, and me on the council, for us to start moving it, but he was very patient, and even entertaining what I thought about racial equity and the city should be doing in my role as an intern. And we probably, like Alderman Braithwaite, have learned to argue respectfully on many different things, but I know that he hears me. We don't always agree. Probably I'm a little difficult to manage, I will admit, but he smiles, even if he's not smiling in his heart. He smiles out, and I appreciate that. I live with a man who does the same thing, so I appreciate that. But I do know that he really wanted to get back to your family, and I know how important that is as someone who has lived away from family. So I'm glad that you all are finally making that happen, and that Wally will be raised with his grandparents, and we wish you the best in your new position.
Thank you, Alderman. Wally, if you would come with me to the podium for a second.
Yeah, I know.
So I'd just like to make a couple remarks myself, Wally. You brought to life the Athenian Oath. You talk about it all the time. You swear people in when they become aldermen here in the city, and that is to work hard to transmit this city better, greater, and more beautiful than it was transmitted when you arrived. I think you are the epitome of the Athenian Oath of citizenship. I listened as all the aldermen, spoke and praised your tenure. And I just want to leave people with what does the Bobkowitz era look like in Evanston? It's a safer city. Part 1 crimes have dropped more than 30% since 2009. The Evanston Fire Department was a Class 3 when you started. It's now a Class 1, of which there are only about 300 departments in the entire country that qualify. Our 311 system that you and your team came here and set up now handles more than 1 million calls. In its duration, it's handled more than 1 million calls. It's incredible. I'm not going to mention the things that other aldermen have already mentioned. Water sales have expanded tremendously. It is a revenue source for this city. It is good for our neighboring cities, and that all happened under your tenure. The Evanston Erie Skokie Health Center was established and expanded with your leadership, this council's leadership, Mayor Tisdall's leadership, and our senators. Fountain Square, people are enjoying it every day now. The bike lanes in this city, again, I just want to stress this all happened under your leadership, but with the council that you served and with the employees that you've had here and the citizens of this city. The Emerson Square Affordable Housing Project, the $18 million NSFP project, provides housing for over 100 families now. Thanks to that project, the Gibbs Morrison Center, a community center, the Robert Crown project, which is underway and will soon be completed within the next year, a project that had really been worked on for about the entire time you were here. The Emerson Green Bay Ridge renovation project is now complete. All of the new downtown shops, the Trader Joe's, the Targets, the Whole Foods, the Net Zero Walgreens, the Binnies, all of those, all the revitalization that Alderman Rainey talked about in the 8th Ward in the south part of Evanston. Evanston Township was dissolved. Those services were observed here. And then, of course, the Youth and Young Adult Division of the city. And the greatest thing I think you've left us with is an incredible team. It's really, I know you're really proud of it. I hope all of the folks that are sitting in this room are proud of the team that serves the city of Evanston. So on behalf of all the residents of Evanston, on behalf of the Evanston City Council, I'd like to present you with this plaque from the city of Evanston for your outstanding service to our city for the last 10 years.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Hagerty, members of the City Council, thank you for your kind words. I'd like to just take a few minutes to reflect and to really recognize this wonderful community. First and foremost, I am most proud of the team. I wrote down names. The names when I first arrived here were Wally, Marty, Joe, and Jack Siegel. And they're now Erica Storley, Kimberly Richardson, Paulina Martinez, and Michelle Mason-Cuff. That is your management team. Those are your senior managers, and I'm so proud of them, and I'm so proud of everyone who works so hard every day to make this a wonderful community. All of you, thank you for what you do. Thank you for coming. Thank you for saying the things that you say. Please don't stop it. This community depends on you. Democracy depends on you. You can know how to come here because of all of these nice people. This is a community that is covered by the press more than any community our size, clearly more than Issaquah. The Daily Northwestern, how many, raise your hand if you're reporting for the Daily Northwestern tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 reporters here covering the items here. So while you may not get the print edition of the Daily Northwestern, it is on the internet and anyone in this community can stay abreast of what's going on. So thank you, and to all the men and women who've come before you. The Evanston Patch, they're never here, but they do write about us. The Evanston Roundtable, that we can support the number of print newspapers in this community. I thank Mary and Larry Gavin and Bob Seidenberg. Bob, thank you for coming back from your exile in the far reaches of the kingdoms. But Bob, how many years have you covered Evanston? Since the early 80s. So Bob has been here, sat through council meetings, and many of you remember when people would wait for the Evanston Review to come out, because for at least the early part of those years, that was it. If you wanted to find out what happened in this community, you read the Evanston Review. The Chicago Tribune and the Evanston Review, Jenny Fisher is back and with a different hat here, but Genevieve Bookwalter, who has been the beat reporter, who recently had her first child, so she's off on maternity leave, but good to have Jenny back writing not only for the Review, but for the Tribune. This community is really fortunate to have a news source that multiple times a day, 7 days a week, is reporting on the important issues that occur in this community, and that's Bill Smith with Evanston Now. That level of coverage, that level of detail, I joke in recent years when I travel, I don't watch the council meetings anymore. If I'm out of town, I just keep my phone down close and I read the blogging that Bill does of every single meeting. These individuals, these men and women, the press exists here in Evanston the way that it does and informs this community like it does, is probably the greatest key of all to democracy. And I wish all of you the very best. Please keep writing. I certainly don't always agree with what you write, but you inform this community, and that's so important. The elected officials that I've had a chance to work with, 2 city clerks, Rodney Green and Devon Reed, members of the Illinois General Assembly, Daniel Biss, Robin Gable, Laura Fine, Jennifer Gong-Gershowitz. I think as Alderman Nguyen mentioned, when I arrived here, intergovernmental relations were discussed at the August Rules Committee meeting, where Jeff Schoenberg, who was the state senator at the time, came to one meeting, and there was never a discussion again about what was happening in Springfield or in Washington. And I think we've been able to change that. County Commissioner Larry Sufferton, who looks after this community very closely, and of course, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. I've had the opportunity to work for 17 Evanston residents who have served on the city council. Let me first recognize Mayor Elizabeth Tisdall, her leadership during 8 years. Many of you have talked about the accomplishments during my term. Those are Mayor Tisdall's accomplishments, and her leadership in this community is so very important. Lionel John Baptiste, Colleen Burris, Dolores Holmes, Mark Tendam, Jane Grover, and Brian Miller, other members of the council who I have served with, certainly Dolores Holmes, really the conscience of the city council, certainly in many discussions, her thoughtful leadership, I think everyone benefited from. Mark Tendam, Jane Grover, Colleen, all important people. Lionel John Baptiste, you've talked about the focus, Alderman Braithwaite, on youth and young adult. Really, that's the foundation that Lionel John Baptiste built. I just came along and listened to him and understood what he wanted to see happen, and I think the success there really is Lionel's. Members of the dais here today, Alderman Fleming, thank you. Like you have said, we sometimes agree to disagree, but your passion and commitment for Evanston is unmatched, and I thank you for the opportunity to work with you on that. Alderman Sufferton, you are blessed with Central Street with no parking, and so we talk over and over and over again about how we can provide parking on Central Street, how we can invest in Love Lakes Park, how we can make sure infrastructure takes place in your ward. So I appreciate the conversation we've had and appreciate your support during my time as city manager. Alderman Ruth Simmons, it's been an honor and a privilege to work with you. I agree the conversations we've had about setting high goals. You have set some very high goals for this community moving forward, and I will look with great interest as I move forward on how the council and the community meet the goals that you set for them. Alderman Revelle, you are blessed and cursed with Northwestern University, along with Alderman Fisk and a little bit of Alderman Ruth Simmons, but certainly you understand the importance of that balance, and I think everyone on the council, certainly all the members of the council that work with Northwestern do that, so I appreciate your leadership and your support. Alderman Braithwaite, there's no hugging in local government, first of all. But Alderman Braithwaite, again, you care so passionately, so deeply. You have a day job, though, and and that day job gets in the way of your caring and compassion, and oftentimes you are driving to and from some appointment for your day job, but you're always spending that time focused and caring about the community. So I'm privileged to work with you. The remaining 4 members of the council were on the council that hired me, Alderman Fisk. We have also spent many hours talking about the world and philosophizing on how things can be better. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your support of me early on in our work with Northwestern, because while we were making great progress, you were always careful to caution that progress always can come at a price. And so I appreciate your counsel there. Alderman Wilson, I think you have taken the mantle of the conscience of the council from Alderman Holmes, and I think that's an important role. It's a sometimes thankless role, but please keep doing it, because the community and this council are better served by that. Alderman Nguyen, we got Trader Joe's, and that will always be the most important thing. That and telling a very high-powered Chicago developer that he couldn't build a one-story CVS at Main and Chicago, and today, that development really has helped supercharge what's going on in the Main Dempster Mile. So thank you for your support. And then there's Alderman Rainey. I'm really sorry I haven't been able to do anything for you during my 10 years as a city manager. But there is no elected official that I have worked with in 30 years in working in local government who cares as deeply about their community and their constituency as you do. Every day, every moment of every day. I've joked, I've heard from you, I think, every hour of every day. I think I've gotten phone calls from you from midnight to midnight over the course of 10 years, because you would see something wrong, you would hear something from a constituent, and you were not satisfied until it was resolved. So working so diligently on that, investing in Howard Street, I think we were able to show Evanston how redevelopment worked. And I don't know that Evanston really saw how redevelopment worked prior to the work on Howard Street. And then finally, Stephen Howard Haggerty, the mayor of the city of Evanston. What a pleasure, what an honor it has been. You and I were acquainted because of our Syracuse connection before my time your time as mayor. But you care so deeply for this community. You care so deeply about democracy. And I think everything you do as mayor, every decision that you make, first and foremost, you're thinking about democracy. You're thinking about how this community is affected. So I've learned from you, and I'm very proud to have served with you. Evanston will always be a very special place for me, not only because of all the things we talked about, because it's also a place where I started my family. My wife, Patrice, is here, her first Evanston City Council meeting in 10 years.
That would be your first and last.
First and last, yes. I asked her this evening if she wanted to break her record. Mostly it's coming in after midnight and her looking up in a darkened room asking, so how did it go? And I always said, oh, it went fine. It didn't really matter. Then she reads Evanston Now the next morning and finds out what really happened. But Patrice, thank you for your support. We were married, as I know many of you know, we were married the week we were married. The first interview for this job was the week before the wedding. The second interview for the job was the week we got back from the honeymoon. We moved here as newlyweds, lived in an apartment together, had to learn a lot about each other, and Patrice being the wife of a city manager, all in a very short period of time. So thank you for that, for all your support, Patrice. We've also been able to raise our son, Wally IV. I think I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Evanston YMCA. They provide a wonderful program. We've been so lucky to have Wally IV at the Y. Let me conclude with a final observation. The business of government at all levels is in crisis. Government is asked to provide many services which all come at a cost. The balancing of these needed expenditures and the resources to provide them is difficult work at best. Please remember, and I say this to you, and I say this to all of you nice people, the residents of Evanston, please remember that the elected officials and the staff that work for them are people too, trying to deliver that needed balance. We try to deliver that needed balance for everyone in the community. Please appreciate how difficult this work is and make sure that your individual voice is heard. Too often, a very small group of people work hard to make their loud voices heard above all others. For democracy to work, every voice must be heard. Again, thank you for the privilege of serving as a city manager of Evanston. It's been the honor of my professional career.
Thank you all.
Cool, thank you.
All right, I'm glad that only happens once every 10 years. We're going to get this meeting started now. Alderman Fisk, do you have something before we go to public comment?
I just wanted to say one more thing for Wally. So Wally, I have every Monday, for 520 Mondays, we have the Monday morning check-in call. If you need anything or want anything, give us a call, otherwise we'll see you tonight. And I'll miss that next Monday. So if you need anything or want anything, please give us a call.
All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and go into public comment. As folks, I think most folks know, we set aside 45 minutes for public comment, and then we divide the number of speakers that we have by that. Today we've got around 25 speakers, so I'm going to put everybody at a minute 45 today. And I'm going to ask Deputy Clerk Gomez just to help us keep track of time. So you get a minute 45 for public comment, and we'll start with James Engelman, then Mike Vasilko, then Harris Miller.
Excuse me. I'm James Engelman from 5th Ward, 24 Brown. I think you should buy this fire truck because it'll be real needed for Evanston. And Erica, I think she would do a good job at being city manager. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for those comments. Appreciate that. Next up, we've got Mike Vasilko, then Harris Miller, then Kenneth Prosky.
Two quick things before my third. Item A3, please vote no against spending $150,000 for the convenience of finding an open parking space. Item A9, I've sent a lengthy email to everyone with a schedule regarding CYA and EYHA. Those agreements, at the very least, please deny the CYA agreement. I understand now they're calling it their home rink. The ice rinks alone are costing Evanston residents $23 million. At least let Evanston kids use it during prime time. CYA owns or leases ice facilities near the Chicago area and in the region. They don't need to use up our prime time, so let our citizens use it at least part of the prime time. Wally, you have obviously made the council very happy over the years, and I hate to be a party pooper. But I saw the Evanston Roundtable article you wrote. I was at the mashup. I witnessed the Love Fest. Heard your speech that night. Despite all of that, all these opportunities, you overlooked many of your accomplishments. So please let me complete the list. I mean no disrespect, but these are important facts and acts that the council is also responsible for. In the past 5 years alone, you've managed to increase the total city debt by $88 million to a new unprecedented $270 million, nearly 1-for-1, and a ratio of city budget to the entire city debt.
Mike, your time is up, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Harris Miller. We got Harris, then Kenneth Prosky, then Lynn Bednar.
All right, good evening. Harris Miller, 4th Ward. Please vote no on items A9 and A10. The CYA and EYHA groups will consume prime time in the afternoon/evening and on weekends when Evanston residents should have priority to use the 2 ice rinks that will cost $23 million, about half of the Robert Crown project costs. Also, the cost is $10,000 per year to join CYA, EYHA, and similar leagues. Minorities, including middle and working class residents, cannot afford the outrageous cost because the leagues favor 1%ers. If we create an affordable public league that's equitable for all residents, perhaps there will be stronger support. I urge City Council to not ignore Evanston's taxpaying majority because we have an equitable stake in Robert Crown as a public place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harris. Kenneth Prosky, Lynn Bednar, then Patricia Hunter Hurt. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. That's the text of what I'm going to say now, so just in case I don't finish. Good evening. My name is Ken Prosky. I reside at 1323 Chancellor Street. I'm here to continue public comment on the U2 text amendment. There are over 50 Central Street businesses who signed the petition to oppose this amendment and have told us that their shops are virtually deserted on large event days. Why? Locals stay away because it's a monumental hassle to get there and there's no parking anyway. Event spectators walk by, but they don't spend, except for a few restaurants and sports apparel shops. Think about it. If you're attending a professional tennis match, would you stop somewhere to buy needlecraft supplies, bread, an eye exam, a pedicure, a haircut, or a guitar? Large events actually hurt, not help, many of these small businesses. The more days with big events, the more days that locals will shop elsewhere, the more economic hardship for businesses, the more risk that they will not survive or move somewhere else. If they leave, what types of businesses will replace them? If the goal is to create a regional entertainment destination as stated in Northwestern's application, then it seems inevitable that more restaurants and bars will move in. The neighborhood will change. Is this consistent with the purpose of the Central Street Corridor Overlay Zoning District, which City Council created to implement the recommendations in the Central Street Master Plan to attract small businesses to the corridor? When you read the purpose statement for this corridor, it says it's created to sustain and enhance the corridor as a location for diverse, unique, small-scale, pedestrian-oriented retail shops, services, restaurants, to encourage a healthy mix of uses along the corridor, to preserve independent and unique use. So please consider the impact of the text amendment. Can I finish my paragraph, please?
You finish the paragraph.
On this overlay district and the diverse, small, unique businesses that have been attracted here, increasing the number of days with huge events from 29 to 42 days per year will make it even harder for many of them. The text amendment is not only incompatible with the purpose of the U2 district, which is predominantly residential, but it also seems inconsistent with the goals and purpose of the business overlay district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Lynn Bednar, Patricia Hurt or Hunt, and then Lynn Troutman.
Hi, my comment is also about the U2 proposed zoning change. My name's Lynn Bednar. I live in the neighborhood of Northwestern at 2671 Prairie, and I'm also the owner of Walsh Natural Health at 2116 Central Street. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as well as my fellow businesses, a few of which are here. Tonight, 54 of us have signed a petition against the proposed zoning change. I just want to be clear, I'm not making the statement on behalf of the Central Street Business Association because we do have a handful of bars and restaurants that do support it. First and foremost, I don't see the benefit to the community of the proposed change. Evanston already hosts many cultural and entertainment events in more appropriate locations. It seems to me primarily about Northwestern increasing its revenues. In addition, I'm told there are locations on Northwestern's campus where concerts and other events like this can be held. So I'm not sure why we're adding these to an already difficult situation that we have in this neighborhood. As a business owner on the street, I can firmly state that Northwestern's events cause a decline, not an increase in business. On game days, you could probably shoot a cannon through most of our stores. And in addition, they're taking up parking. You know, we're constantly fighting with the city about the lot that's directly across from my store, so I have a front row seat to it. That lot is always full of Northwestern game goers. And so I think the sad thing is we're going to be losing business not on just game days, but people are going to get tired of the parking issues and the access issues to this neighborhood. You know, we can't depend on people because of the internet to come back another day now. They're just going to buy elsewhere. So I would strongly urge the city to take care of its residents and take care of its businesses rather than trying to increase Northwestern's revenues. I really think this proposal only benefits them in large part. So I would urge you to take that into consideration.
Thank you. Just so folks know, I know people are speaking on this, that item of the NU zoning request change isn't on this evening's agenda. Okay, just so folks know. Lynn, oh no, wait, excuse me, I got Patricia Hunt. Is Patricia here? Okay, Patricia Hunt, then Lynn Troutman, then Misty Wittenberg.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia Hunt. I live at 1820. I got to talk fast. I live at 1828 Gray, and we have many people in the Fifth Ward has called 311 numerous times complaining about the rats. They are big as cats. And running all through our yards and all up and down the streets in the alley. I said, so I saw Alderman Robin Rue on the Remembrance Picnic. And I told her, I said, you know what? I told her about it, and she said, well, you're the first and only person in the Fifth Ward that ever complained about the rat condition. And I've had all the neighbors all talking about them. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, if y'all can't do nothing about it, I would do like I did in 2001 when I called the news stations 2579 and showed them about the West Nile virus and showed them all the dead birds that was all over. Then after that, the abatement they hadn't sprayed in 12 years. They came out and they have not stopped since, number one. Number two, well, there's a house, I don't know what your city ordinance on housing is, but Carolyn Murray, her son, Justin, was killed in November of 2012, and as he came out his grandmother's house, and the people stood, when the ones that shot him was 2 doors away in my in-laws' yard, and they could not be seen because of the the big high trees. So what had happened, now I've owned a home here before, and there is an ordinance that you cannot go past your house on the front and go all the way around the front no more than with a fence no more than 4 feet high. The neighbor at 1820 has a foot that's 5 feet and 5 inches, okay? And it goes all the way around the whole front to the sidewalk of the house. When I came out of that house, when I come out of there, I am scared because you cannot see nowhere down the street. You can't see the Emerson. You don't know who's standing there. Then he got bushes that's almost 6 feet high going all across the whole front. City inspectors' cars are driving up and down Gray and Brown all day long. So how did somebody let him have this and people's safety? I go to my car, I'm scared to look around.
Okay. City Manager, could you have
somebody answer that
Carmen?
question?
Well, we can't sort of have a back and forth, but I'm just going to ask the City Manager's office just to look into it. Okay, it's working on it.
Staff out there.
Okay.
Is Ike still here? So maybe she could meet with Ike.
Yeah,
I know the Community Development Director, Johanna Leonard, is in the library, so ma'am, she'll come and speak with you. Just give her a minute.
Okay, and one last thing, can I say one thing, sir? This will be real quick. Okay, I went up and down the alleys today over there. All the black boxes that was put out after I approached Alderman Simmons and all of them are gone out of the alleys from the garbage can.
Okay, we'll look into that too. Thank you, Mrs. Hunt.
Erica, can you connect her with Johanna? I think she's in the library.
Okay, all right, thank you. Lynn,
Bless you all.
Lynn, you're up next, and then Misty Wittenberg, and then Evie Russell.
Hi, thanks for listening. My name is Lynn Troutman. I'm at Chancellor and Eastwood. I'm also one of the voices that usually doesn't come to the podium. I'm a quiet citizen, and I watch behind the scenes for the most part. I'm here to talk about the U2 text amendment. I understand that many city council members were wined and dined by Northwestern on the 14th in the Wilson Club. That's what I was told, the city council members. It's an annual event. And I just wanted to say to whoever who did attend that while you guys were being schmoozed and wined and dined, I wanted to show you what the view from the other side of the fence looks like. Okay? In the space of 5 minutes in my backyard, I saw an Audi partially blocking my very tiny driveway. I saw people piling into a black SUV with open liquor in hand. And I saw an extremely drunk, middle-aged woman staggering across my front lawn. A neighbor just told me that that night, someone had gone all down Central and broken all the pots and pulled out all the plants between Hartree and McDaniel. So that's what 6 collegiate games looks like in my neighborhood. Can you blame us for not wanting to introduce pro sports and pro concerts and increase the number of days and events that occur like that? This is a big deal for us.
Thank you, Lynn. Misty Wittenberg, Evie Russell, and then Leslie McMillan.
Hi, I want to say I live on Ms. Hunt's block, and I can attest to the rats. So now that, Mayor, that you're here and we're actually having this opportunity, I'm hoping that you can clarify why you indicated to us at the July 15th meeting that the city had hired outside counsel to investigate the 3 workplace complaints against the clerk. And that's also what it appears you told the city officials and staff and Sheriff Dart, and what you were prepared to file to Kim Fox's office. Because the investigation for that matter, which is on invoices, is matter 019102 and 3, started more than a month before those complaints were filed. At least as early as March 25th, all of those complaints were filed, it appears, on the same day, which was April 26th. And given the information that was provided to that investigator and the person to whom he reported and their interests, why you presented him as someone who was acting in any type of neutral capacity, because he was not pursuing an independent investigation, and I'm not going to go further here, but we can let other people sort that out. I also wanted to clarify why you told the sheriff that my request to the city was the first indication the city had for executive session information being disclosed, because according to city records, not only did you know about that information being previously leaked, you knew an unauthorized meeting was held by an unprivileged person about that information. So I'm not sure why you would omit that from the request for an investigation to the sheriff on the same matter. Well, actually, I do know why. So I just will end in saying that the severity of the situation for any officials or staff who have any amount of information, I'm not saying anyone's fully aware of the whole thing. You should not be disclosing it to me anymore or to anyone else. You should bring it to Sheriff Dart or to the state's attorney, and you should do it immediately because it's becoming a very serious issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Misty. Evie Russell, Leslie McMillan, and Del Morris.
Hello, my name is Evie Russell. Let me read you something. Being a diverse community, the leaders of this city learned long ago that when something is severely detrimental to one group of citizens in one part of town, it is detrimental to us all. Thus, when an entire neighborhood, generation after generation, rises up in protest, we know that our fellow Evanstonians will feel our pain, do what is right, and help us in our time of travail. So will our elected representatives. Of course, this has all been said before, and that is why our city leaders enacted the laws that now exist. The tragedy is that we have to fight this battle once again. This is a letter that Gerald Jakova, who is now 74, wrote to the Honorable Lorraine Morton in 1996, and I will give you a copy of that letter. And he mentions, at the very end of this letter, only this time we don't have Russ Johnson to help us. Jerry Jakova worked with Russ Johnson in the 70s for the same issue that I fought with Jerry Jakova in 1996, and I'm fighting again to save our neighborhood from this change, the zoning text amendment that Northwestern is proposing. And I sometimes have almost like survivor guilt, at the same time as I feel a great responsibility, because I am supposedly now the only person in Evanston who has over 1,000 pages of documentation on these fights. I have documentation from the 20s, from the 60s, the 80s, the 90s, and now I'm collecting it from this time around. And I think that precedent is an issue that you have to consider. And you have to consider your history and the innumerable hours that previous council members and ZBA members spent, and the amount of money that the city spent to fight Northwestern because of the issue of precedent. And it will occur again if you pass the zoning ordinance text amendment. Here's the letter.
You can bring it on up here. Thank you, Ms. Russell.
By the way, he may appear interested too.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Leslie McMillan, Del Morris, then Mayor Rudzinski.
Hi, Leslie McMillan. I'm a 25-year resident in the 7th Ward. I'd like to address the council and request that they please turn down Resolution A9, allowing the LOI of the Chicago Young Americans Hockey Association. I'd like to draw the council's attention to a lawsuit filed against the Amateur Hockey Association of Illinois earlier this year, and as well, which included the Chicago Young Americans Association. This is a group that is a very elite group of 4 that are allowed at the AAA level that really promotes exclusivity and an increase in prices and drives up prices for hockey. I'd like to read to you from the Chicago Cranes Association article. There's a lot of money in it too. The clubs are nonprofit organizations, of which Chicago Youth Americans is one of 4. They are nonprofit organizations, but they're akin to the kids' version of a pro team run by paid administrators and coaches. Many families pay at least $10,000 to participate and bankroll the costs of ice time, equipment, hockey directors, coaches, trainers, according to the people involved in the sport. And this figure doesn't include the cost of travel and accommodation for tournaments. Why are we promoting and allowing an association like this to enter in and use our community center when we say we're looking at everything through a lens of equity? That just doesn't sound like Evanston to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Del Morris, Mary Rudzinski, then Betty Esther.
Hello, I am Del Morris. I just wanted to give you my story. I'm the director of Evanston Hockey. I grew up in Evanston, was born in Evanston, played hockey in Evanston since 1985. I am currently the director of Evanston Hockey. Evanston Hockey has been everything to me. It's brought me to everywhere I've gone, college, played juniors, and where I am today, I wanted to come back and coach kids. With that, for the last 10 years that I've been coaching at Evanston Hockey, we have been a strong participant in the NHL diversity program, which means we basically try to give hockey to every person that is willing to play, be it girls, ethnic backgrounds, whatever you see forth, we try to make that happen through our NHL diversity program. With that being said, I've recently had been married, I have 2 kids, and one of them is a girl. And once I knew that she was a girl, I was like, wow, I'm set for college, because if I can get her into hockey, they are going to fly into those colleges. So that is the reason why hockey is so important to me. It's just a gateway to perseverance, hard work, dedication, and it really shows what one can do outside of the rink, and that's what kind of brought me into it. The girls that have been in our programs are now at Dartmouth, Penn State, getting scholarships and things like that, and it all started from playing Evanston hockey and being at the Robert Crown Community Center. And I just really urge that having CYA at this rink is only going to bring more girls, the CYA Girls Program is going to bring more girls interested into this program and give them more opportunities at the college level, because that's how much it's needed and that's how much it's wanted.
Thank you, Del.
Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Rosinski, Betty Esther, and Ray Friedman.
Hi, Mary Wazinski. I'm actually asking you not to sign the CYA, not because to counter anything Dale said, but because I think that it's not a good financially responsible agreement for us. At least go back and renegotiate it. I mean, we look around at where the hockey rinks are at, and they're like the Northbrook Ice Arena, which was referred to in the Cranes magazine as a really good model to look at, is minimum $460 an hour. And when I say minimum, it doesn't include all the extra amenities that this draft is going for. We have a huge bill. That facility is going to cost us $3 million a year starting in 2 years, and we need all the revenue. And I just ask you to go back, look at the draft, negotiate something really good, and also look at the prime time versus non-prime time, and make sure there's stuff in there for figure skaters and the other skaters that are around. Second, real quick, I want to talk, you're coming up to the text amendment come October. This will be the second time I've had to fight with this battle. You know, a lot of 7th Ward people are here often over the years because we have a huge boundary issue. We've got the biggest entity in the city on our borders, always pushing forward, and then we have other things going on. So we need to come up here and explain to people, because there is nowhere else in this community that has that kind of thing except for possibly Howard Street, which has Chicago coming in on it. But we have, 45,000 people coming in 5-7 times a year, in addition to all the other things. This is a neighborhood, and Evanston was built on a system of neighborhoods, and this is the only place I can find, being in real estate, where a community is actually considering putting a commercial entity of this size in a residential neighborhood. Usually they put them in areas that are blighted, and then that helps bring property values up. This has the effect of possibly, however, or did it go up? I'm sorry. The only other thing I wanted to say was I work at Caldwell Banker, and with what we said on the businesses, on game days, we just basically shut down because no one can have clients come in, no one can get to the office. It just doesn't work. So it really is quite an economic inconvenience for the businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Ms. Esther, Ray Friedman, and Tricia Conley.
Good evening. My name is Betty Esther, and I'm here to speak about the ADU accessible units. We've been talking about here that information, that in committees, that in this building. The one place we have not taken that conversation is out to the public. I heard that there was a proposal. Well, it went through or not, it doesn't matter. Because what they said, we're going to do a 2-bedroom unit. The coach houses are 2 bedrooms. When that does not serve the people in the community where I live, they need 3-4 bedrooms. And a 2-bedroom is hard pressed to fit a family of 4. You have to look at it in many ways. We need to start talking to the people in the community, the people that pays the property tax and a high property tax we pay, to help get and maintain a community with people in it. You will lose people not only of diverse color, it will be young white people. It will be young people, old people, because they won't be able to afford. What will happen when you do this, we increase the revenue through the tax base. Let's have a conversation and let's look at what we have in this community. What kind of housing do we have? How many houses do we have? You have changed the ordinance for the people living in more than 3 related people. Look and see how many people in the community would like to take advantage of that, to see would this make a difference. But start having a conversation about the community with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esther. Ray Friedman, Tricia Conley, and Claire Kelly.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to say congratulations to Wally on his new position in Issaquah. Best of luck to you. And congratulations to Erica for her new temporary role as acting city manager. I wanted to thank Kimberly Richardson and Kate Lewis for hosting the 3 recent roundtable budget discussions. Although it was a little disappointing, as it was not exactly a discussion about our budget, it was more of a presentation about the breakdown of our budget. Many of us were hoping to discuss the status of our budget, bless you. And do we have a balanced budget? Do we need to raise taxes and fees again? Are we able to lower our taxes and fees? And what can we possibly do about cutting expenses? And I thought that's the conversation we were going to have at these budget meetings, roundtable discussions. We are paying all kinds of extra money for studies, and I'm wondering why some of our 800 employees can't do some of these studies, and wondering, are we really paying a company to talk to residents about affordable housing? It's crazy. We've been talking about affordable housing for 10 years, and to pay a company to go out and actually talk to residents about what residents want for affordable housing. Anyhow, as a side note, after paying $200,000 for our street study, bless you, there are several cracks on the street on the 2300 block of Greenwood, a block away from MLK School, but the alley across the street was graded several times. Finally, why do we keep on talking about what to talk about? Can we please have a discussion, come up with a plan, stick with a plan, and in a language that we can measure the success or failure of these plans? Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Sure.
All right, Tricia Conley, Claire Kelly, and then Walter Anderson.
Hello, Tricia Conley, 4th Ward. I would just like to chime in on something I believe Wally mentioned, to the effect of, you know, to be considerate of not just a few loud voices, but other voices or more voices. And I'd like to take that and frame that in terms of the kinds of things that actually are going on here in a couple of ways. One is Northwestern, that's a very loud voice. CYA, that's a very loud voice. Friends of Robert Crown is shouting, and there's some outcomes with that. So I'd love if the council would remind themselves that behind all of those very loud voices is a community of people, and we're counting on you. We're counting on you not to put the burden on us. Northwestern has made a big deal about asking neighbors for input about what they want to do over off of Central Street. But instead of addressing two of the biggest issues neighbors have, they used feedback to grant themselves more leeway and throw neighbors under the bus. Neighbors voiced an issue with tear-down noise at 7 a.m. on Sundays following game days, and instead of protecting neighbors from that nuisance, Northwestern instead decided to grant themselves permission to make noise starting at 6:30 a.m., a half hour earlier. People voiced issues with parking capacity and overflow into the neighborhood, but when Northwestern discovered that they actually had several hundred fewer spots than they thought they had, they simply struck the words adequate parking from the amendment.
Trish, I need you to wrap it up.
Thank you. So again, who weighs heavy here? Is it all the residents of Evanston, or is it a few important folks that get your attention? Thank you.
Thank you. Claire Kelly, Walter Anderson, and then Brad Gluzowski. I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Good evening, Claire Kelly, First Ward resident of about 50 years. So it's becoming pretty clear that the Robert Crown project is a project not driven by and for the community, but by and for an elite group of people. And so I'm asking you tonight to hold off on voting on A9 and A10. We should not be cobbling in the needs of the public and figure ice skaters and everything else after we patch in elite groups like CYA, and like Leslie McMillan mentioned, they're right now part of a group facing a lawsuit for rigging the prices to keep them high and elite and exclusive. Is that what we're about here in Evanston? Really, we're going to fit in CYA, give them the hours they need first, then we'll figure out the next then Northwestern, and then maybe we'll figure out when the figure skaters, who actually it costs about half the price, Peter and Judy, than it does hockey skaters. And that's what we're working on right now. We're working on figuring out this ice situation that's costing most of the cost of the Robert Crown Centers for these ice rinks. And we're figuring out how we can meet the needs of all the elite groups right now. We're not figuring out the figure skaters, and we know what a dark, ugly reputation Robert Crown already has in the figure skating world for cronyism. And by the way, I hope that we're going to hire professional city-paid ice monitors and not leave it to those with vested interest in handing off ice time to friends and letting EYH take a pass when they cancel the day before and let them get away without paying, because we need every dollar we can get on that ice. I ask you tonight to hold off until we get a plan for the ice that includes community use and not make us have to cobble in the community. Show us really that you actually do have an interest in this becoming a community center. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Walter Anderson, is there a Walter? Okay, so Walter's, how about Brad Gluszewski? Thank you, Brad. Thank you for pronouncing that. Welcome.
Oh, I'm up when my name's people pause. My name is Brad Gluszewski, and I live at 1570 Oak Avenue in the 4th Ward. I moved in December, and shortly thereafter, I started noticing very severe safety issues with my elevator. I have reported this to the city over 4 times through 411 or 311, ensured that it would be inspected. There's no real proof of that. I have all the inspection records that were given to me today by the city going back to May 2018. My building has not passed 1. I have been in contact with my management company, who has told me it will be fixed every 2 weeks. That has not happened. There has never been a certificate of inspection. I am one of many people who has called 911 many times for myself who has been trapped in the elevator or other people. I have a disability that makes it very difficult for me to do stairs, sometimes impossible. I have been trapped in my apartment for days and weeks, recently causing me to lose my job. When I went to a city official about this about a month ago, she told me the city had nothing they could do about it. It's not their job to enforce it, and they will not. She then told me that I should go to my neighbors, ask them to do my laundry and get my groceries if I am unable to do so. I have filed other requests. Other people in my town have done this multiple times, trying to get someone to come out. It absolutely hasn't happened. From the moment I started talking to her, she started defending Wesley Realty, including calling him on the phone, saying he's one of the best property managers in the city. I would ask any of you, please Google Wesley Realty Management. Look at the reviews, look at the photos. I have ones I can send you of severe issues in my building. Fire doors with holes in them. All across the board. I've pretty much done everything we can. No one has listened. I've never been treated as someone with a disability, been told just to ask other people and just been refused. I have all of this. If anyone would like to see pictures, I would also invite any of you, please come to my building. Please call me, I'll show you everything. Alderman Wilson told me today that it's on record with the council. The elevator has been fully modernized. They also put up posters, announcements in late July.
I didn't say that. That's not what I said, just to be clear.
Okay, well, it's supposed to be done. In July, it was also stated very clearly that the modernization was done. The elevator caught on fire the next day. So now everyone in my building has to wonder, not only if we get in our elevator, will we get down, but will we die in it? Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Okay. Carlos, next up we got Carlos Sutton. Is Carlos here? And then we have you, Darlene, and then Lou Tuber.
Good evening, Mayor Haggerty, Deputy Clerk Gomez, members of the City Council, and City Manager Bobowitz. I'm standing here this evening in hopes that we will have more input from citizens in the search for the new city manager. I'm also encouraging you to utilize sensitivity to decrease the number of lawsuits that have been filed against the city, costing us a lot of money in the search for a new city manager. In reviewing the proposed budget, I did not review any considerations for reparations or extended services to assist seniors in housing. I hope these oversights will be corrected in the budget. I'm also concerned about Articles A9 and A10. Please do not vote to oppose these. However, I am encouraged that one of my ex-students, Dale, spoke eloquently this evening about that particular issue. And I'm glad to see that some citizens in the next generation are also coming here to voice their concerns. Next, I would like to commend your decision to appoint Pat Gregory to the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Board. It's a very good appointment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Carlos. Darlene Cannon, Lou Tuber, and then Candace Davis. And then it'll be Christine White will be our last speaker.
Good evening. Darlene Cannon, Second Ward. I'm here to talk about A9 and A10. Just want to say that it seems like you guys are figuring out the needs of private entities before figuring out the needs of the community. It's clear that this facility is being built, it's not being built for the community, and that you're trying to pander to us by offering us up a library. Your first and foremost concern should be considering community needs. So I ask you again, who are you building this center for?
Okay, thank you. Lou Tuber, and then Candace Davis, then Christine White.
Thank you for letting me speak. I am a proud ETHS grad, 1987, and I am grateful to Evanston for the education I received that allowed me to fulfill my dream of being a veterinarian. And I knew I wanted to come back to Evanston to be a veterinarian. In 2014, I took over a 1956 Evanston business, Berglund Animal Hospital, moved it to Central Street, and we reinvested, revigorated, state-of-the-art hospital, and we will be very adversely affected, as the community has already noted, by this proposal of Northwestern. If we lose a client for the day of one of their pro events, we may lose them more than a day, we may lose them for life. We are a community hospital that take care of the dogs and cats, including the Evanston police dogs. And we need them to be able to get to us in a timely fashion with less stress, less traffic. And if they're not going to make it there, they're going to go somewhere else. We serve every district in this community, including surrounding communities, Skokie, Wilmette, and we need this not to go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Candace Davis and Christine White.
Hi, I'm Candace Davis. I live in the 2700 block of Eastwood by the stadium, and I'm here to oppose the U2 text amendment. We've lived here for over 30 years, and I'm a graduate of Northwestern Law, and I've been a really good sport about the games for all these years because it's part of being part of the community. But this proposal to expand it to commercial and professional events, I think is unacceptable. Even if it's just 12 more events, up to 7,000 people, it's going to be further harm to the community, and we really need you to take a close look at it. I don't think that it meets the planning. It was really, the Plan Commission's approval of this was surprising to me because I think, in fact, it doesn't meet any of the standards for zoning amendments. It's not consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's not compatible with the overall character of existing uses in Evanston. It will have an adverse impact on the value of adjacent property. People have already testified to that effect, and the existing public facilities and services are not adequate for the proposed new use. So please, please, very carefully consider this before you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine White. Do we have Christine White here? All right. All right. Well, we had Christine White here. You signed up and I missed you, Doreen, or?
I didn't make it because I was over here instead of.
Yeah. I think we're. All right. Come on up, Doreen, for real quick.
I came here specifically for the fire department. I'm an advocate in many ways. I talked to the chief, who's awesome and very approachable. I recommend it highly to talk to any fire officer or any police officer. We're a community blessed with people who protect us in different ways and actually want to know who we are and remember. So for that, I'm very grateful. The request or ask I have reasons and rationale. I'll send that to support this, but many of you already heard the arguments and papers that I presented to council about the inequitable effects of storms and crises on the poor and especially smaller homes. What happens is that you have the trauma of not being able to find help because you're low on the list, and insurance companies try to get out of what they're supposed to do. And if you don't have, or if you have a large family, or you have things that are tearing you apart, that's the worst time to be vulnerable. So prevent that damage. It's not just a damage, but it's prevent our sanity and increase our well-being for those who are vulnerable. And I think I'm proposing that this year we make it a priority to look at climate resiliency for low-income homes, and that just a simple addition as a trial of a $1,000 pump to the skinny fire truck would go a long way. In terms of community involvement, the chief also told me, Chief Scott also told me, they said he wants community involvement. So to get community involvement and coming up with ideas and also about the pump, or if that's going to work or something else is needed, would be great. So I propose that we have a meeting just in the next week or two to decide on a pump to be added at the low cost of $1,000.
Thank you, Doreen. And thank you, everybody, for speaking at public comment today. I know everybody at the council appreciates the different perspectives and takes those, your words, seriously. So we're now going to move into the agenda this evening. We've got a couple items on special order of business. Let's see. Who's right now the head of P&D? P&D is Alderman Rue Simmons. Could you just introduce Alderman Rue Simmons, SP1?
Staff recommends the City Council continue consideration of whether to accept appeal of Preservation Commission's decision denying certificate of appropriateness for 2404 Ridge Avenue until October 14, 2019, meeting of the City Council. The appellate have stated that they will be out of the country on September 23rd, 2019. The City Council may make a decision to accept the application for appeal. If a motion is made and adopted, the City Council shall affirm, modify, or reverse the decision of the Preservation Commission within 45 days. If no motion to accept the application for appeal is made, the decision of the Commission shall be finals for action.
Is there a second? Okay, this is open for any discussion. Alderman Fisk.
I move we do not accept the appeal.
Oh,
Can we do that?
Well, there's already a motion to accept.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a motion that was seconded to accept this appeal.
Good
See-
Mayor, can I interrupt for a second?
City Attorney?
Michelle Mason, Cup City Attorney.
Is your mic on?
So can you hear me?
Now a little.
Can you hear me now? Better? Okay. I think, so the applicant, the appellant is out of the country, and to give him the opportunity to address the council and the purpose for the appeal, my preference is that the council make a motion to continue this matter to the next council date, simply to allow the appellant the opportunity to address you.
Okay, Alderman Wilson.
Well, I think that's totally appropriate. I mean, we scheduled this. I don't
It's
expect
just
somebody
pursuant to code. We have to take it to this meeting, but
Sure.
individual is not available.
Sure, and they didn't have any control over that. So, would the correct motion be moved to hold it to a date certain?
It just continues to the next regular meeting, which is
Okay, so I move that we continue it to the next regular meeting.
just make a motion to hold.
I move to hold it to the next regular meeting.
Perfect.
Okay. And that's it. We don't have to do a vote on that. Okay. All right. So SP1 is going to be held to the next meeting, which will be October 14th. All right. So this is held till October 14th. We're now going to move on to SP2. Alderman Rainey, could you introduce SP2?
SB2, recommended action is staff suggests City Council approve a contract with GovHR USA, an executive recruiting firm, in the amount of $23,500 to conduct the recruitment process for the next city manager for the city of Evanston. The funding source would be from the recruitment budget. Current balance is $20,029. A third of the recruitment fee is due upon the acceptance of the proposal. 1/3 is due when a list of candidates is forwarded to the city for consideration, and the remaining 1/3 is due when the recruitment is completed in 2020. I move approval.
Okay. City manager, can we just, right now, this is just for discussion, I saw on the agenda, it doesn't, unless it changed. So does this not require a vote? And it does. Okay, so this is moved for an approval, okay. All right, Alderman Fleming.
You're right, though, it does say discussion, that's confusing, but anyway, so I would be voting no for this firm. I would like to, I saw the memo, but I had some concerns with the last search that they did for us, maybe the last two searches. But the question I have, I know that there was information in there about firms being kind of all over the U.S., and this one I understand is closer. Were we able to seek out, or in the 20 firms that we went for, were there any that were minority or women-owned businesses?
GovHR is a woman-owned business.
Yep.
Oh, okay, well.
Totally. And I believe others are as well.
Well, sure, thank you.
Members of City Council, Jennifer Lane, HR Division Manager. Yes, some of the firms from the West Coast and the East Coast were women-owned. A lot of the companies are actually owned by women who typically are HR consultants who do this type of work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, seeing no more lights, Alderman Fisk.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted a little bit of a further explanation on, did we have personal contact with these firms? Or did we just mail something out to them and ask them for their interest?
So because it was such a short notice, I sent literally, I remember 2 weeks ago, we were here, I went back to my office, sent out 20 emails immediately that night to get as much information back as possible. So in such a short time, we were able to at least get 7 quotes back. So we could certainly wait to receive additional ones. They're still coming in. Another one just came in this morning.
Okay, but we got quotes. You didn't have any conversations with any of these folks?
Other
or
than via
interviewed them?
email, no.
Oh, okay.
All right, Alderman Russo.
Yes, I have concerns also, and I'm not sure what the process is. I appreciate that this is a woman-owned business, and I'm not sure if the packet includes what their diversity goals are, but in looking at the associate roster, I see 100% Caucasian associates, and so I don't see a reflection of a commitment to inclusion in their representation, and I would be concerned about how they could prioritize that in our search.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Simmons. Can I just ask a question to the city manager?
Sure.
Have we used GovHR in the past, and if so, for which positions did we hire them for?
Yeah, I believe Jennifer's email. I know the police chief, the Parks and Rec director were the last 2.
Correct, and then Mark Munzer before that.
Okay. So those were 2 African-American hires and Mark, LGBT.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank
you. So of the three hires they've helped us, all 3 have represented diverse communities.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Yes, I'd like to speak to the selection that we were given. I know of 2 of the firms over the hundreds of years I've been here. Slavin and Mercer Group have presented and I cannot remember, maybe they were city manager candidates that they presented to us, that we've hired these 2 firms before. And I remember they were very much, and I'm sure they've changed by now, but they were very much, the term that I could think of is very status quo, not very current. I will tell you that this firm we've used several times, and they have always provided us with a real diverse group of candidates. Just because they happen not to have a diverse group on their staff, they go out and they will search for the kinds of candidates we're looking for. And I am hoping that we will get to meet them with them before they go out searching.
Yes.
Because I don't want them reaching in the file cabinet and pulling out the oldie moldies, because they know we don't want that. They know that we like Wally. So when are we going to meet them?
At your convenience.
Okay. So if we hire them before they go out, we send them out with the message, you know, of the kind of candidates we want them to bring to us.
If you look at their proposal, one of the first meetings is for them to come out to the city to talk with the stakeholders. So that initial meeting will be with you and city staff to determine what kinds of qualifications that they would like to see in the next city manager. Then after that would be a community meeting to discuss what the community would like to see.
I mean, I remember when we were looking for Chief Eddington. Remind me, city manager, we had numerous candidates of color, including, and I think we can talk about this because it was very public thing. We had the fellow from Milwaukee, right?
I think you're thinking of fire chief.
Fire chief, okay.
Yes, we had the assistant chief in Milwaukee was a finalist.
Right. I mean, that group of candidates was extremely diverse, and I mean, I think they've got to be in the top of their class. I mean,
And Alderman Rainey, members of the council, this is looked to nationally as a very progressive community. People who are progressive in this profession want to come here. And so you will have, I don't think pool is a concern. I think you want to make sure whoever you hire as an executive search firm understands what you're looking for. The community component, I think the council has said, is very important. Making sure that that occurs in an appropriate way. Having recently been in the job market myself, I can tell you that, every community does this a little differently. And no one, there are very few communities like Evanston. And I think those that you want to apply for this job will ultimately do that because they will see this as one of the great challenges in local government in America.
Thank you, City Manager. Alderman Nguyen, and then Fisk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will speak like Alderman Rainey from some experience here, and I will say that we used Slavin Management when we hired Julia Carroll, and I don't believe that was a woman or minority-owned firm. I will say that I definitely liked the dealings that I've experienced with GovHR. I was dismayed to see how many of these firms are from the West Coast. Initially, I was concerned because the Midwest is different. And so I really do appreciate that they are from the Midwest, and we have had great success with them before. We aren't a run-of-the-mill community, and we really need a recruiting firm that very much understands us, and they have been very successful in understanding us before. And a critical element of all of this is that they come in and hear from us, they hear from stakeholders, and then they let us know what they hear, and to make sure that their message of who they're looking for is clear and in accordance with what we want. And so I think as a result of that, we have had great success with GovHR, and I very much support them in this endeavor and think that we should begin this process.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just off the top of my head, I mean, generally, I would feel more comfortable if we selected 3 firms and invited them in to talk with the council so we could get an idea if they know what we're looking for. But I'm happy to hear what everybody else says about that. I guess I'm not so concerned that we find someone from the Midwest as we find someone who's a match for our community, because I think there are other university communities and tech communities and hipster communities that might be not in the Midwest, but still be a better match for us. I don't have anything against GovHR, and I guess, Mr. City Manager, I would just ask you, because you've been in this for a while, but do these firms have pools of people, and are those pools different?
Alderman Fisk, members of the council, they are. I mean, as Ms. Lynn mentioned, there is a very heavy lean toward the West Coast. There's just a lot of communities of size on the West Coast, so many of the firms out there are the West Coast firms, and looking at the list, those are largely the ones you haven't heard from, because this is not a market that they do. GovHR really has focused on the center of the country.
Does that mean that they might have a group of candidates who would not be interested in coming to the Midwest? Is that how we should interpret that?
The California firms basically recruit in California for positions in California. Having, again, recently been in this marketplace, city councils in California are interested in candidates from California. And so there are just so many communities at any given time, a number of these firms have a niche. So the balance, which are the ones here, Slavin, Mercer, Julia Novak's firm, there's a little firm in Issaquah, Washington even.
Yes.
They have a little bit broader reach, and I think that's not surprising. local government's a small business nationwide. People were aware that Evanston was going to open up, and those firms that would normally look for communities like Evanston to solicit to all have applied. There's not, when I look at this list, I do not see a firm that says, gosh, if they were only here, that would really be good. If the council wanted to bring in 3 firms to talk, I mean, that is not an unusual thing to do, and they will come and make presentations about their approach. But they largely have a book of business, and they will show you, I think Jennifer did a good job of pointing that out, they will show you where they're looking at candidates. Evanston is one of probably 24 communities under 100,000 in America that would have a national recruitment. So there just aren't that many, quite honestly. So each of these here, do that. Again, Slavin, as you know, have been around a long time. They do things here. Julia Novak's firm has done some consulting work for us over the last 10 years. But GovHR, Head and Shoulders, they do a lot of work in Texas. They do work in Florida. They do work now in Pennsylvania. Other large council manager states, Michigan, the state of Michigan's municipal league does recruiting, so most of the Michigan recruitments are done through their state municipal league. I believe Ohio, the municipal league is also involved, so there's some competition there. So that's also another factor. When the municipal league offers a service, then those states are largely off the table.
Okay.
And you look at larger Midwest communities, there are the council manager ones are the other Big Ten communities, Ann Arbor, East Lansing, Champaign, Iowa City. The other communities in those states are largely strong mayors, so there is not a council manager. There might be a city administrator, things like that. So I think the question really for the council is, if you don't want to go forward with 1 and you want to interview 3, that again is a standard practice, and if that would make the majority of the council more comfortable, then I think we could make a recommendation of probably who the 3 you'd want to talk to are. Because clearly GovHR would be on that list.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that before.
You can add that.
We did, Alderman Fisk, when we were preparing to hire the city manager who became Julia Carroll, and Ann will help me remember this, we did interview several different recruiting firms, and then we chose Slavin at the time.
I would like us to do that this
Okay.
time.
So, all right, so that's noted. Alderman Wilson, then Alderman Sufferman.
Thank you. So it sounds like there's still a possibility of a few more trickling in the
Absolutely.
next few days. We've got a rules committee next 2 weeks.
October 7th.
So maybe what we can do is we can hold this over till the 7th at rules, wait for the rest of them to come in, pick the 3 at that time, and maybe just have the 3 that we, are choosing from make some sort of, short presentation. I realize I'm mindful of the fact that, we're talking about a contract probably under $25,000. They're probably not going to fly a team to Chicago and put them up in a hotel. So we can do that by, I presume, electronically or some sort
We
of
can do that Skype, and I'm
alternative.
sure
Yeah.
someone from GovHR will
Yeah.
be here in present.
And I'm fine with that, so.
Okay.
So unless anybody
I thought we got
objects.
Alderman Sufferman.
Okay.
Jen, do you anticipate with GovHR that former City of Evanston employees who work there now would be involved in this search process?
No. Only because the 2 people you're referring to don't do the executive searches. That's not their role in the organization. So there are just a few people that handle the HR searches and the executive searches. It's just a handful of folks that do that, and I can definitely talk to them to see if they've already assigned a person. Some of the proposals that you saw had somebody that was already assigned to the project should we have selected them. So I can certainly reach out to GovHR to see if they would be willing to give me the person that they would be assigning to this project.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. So I move that we hold this till the October 7th Rules Committee meeting, at which time we'll select 3 from the ones who've responded.
Great, and I'll follow up with all the remaining ones that come in.
All right, great, thank you.
Okay, and that was seconded. All right, so that's where we stand on SP2, held to rules, October 7th, and then we'll review 3. Okay. All right, we're now going to move on to the consent agenda. Alderman Braithwaite, if you could start with M1 and then take us through APW. Alderman Braithwaite? I'm ready for you. If you could start with M1.
With M1. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'd like to move approval of the minutes for the regular city meeting September 9th, 2009. I'd also like to move payroll August 19th, 2019 through September 1st in the dollar amount of $2,715,957.13. That's for action. I'd like to also move item A2, bills list September 24th in the dollar amount of $5,284,553.53. I'd also like to move item A3. It's the sole source purchase of the parking, business analytics and garage capacity signs and automated technologies, and that's in the dollar amount of $147,876. I'd also like to move item A4, sole source renewal with the government premium partner, Dayston Corporation for the G Suite license agreement. That's going to be in the dollar amount of $96,804.50. Item A5 is the approval of the purchase of the replacement fire engine from Global Energy Products, Emergency Products. That's going to be in the dollar amount of $659,200. It's for action. I'd also like to move item A6, approval of the change order with Tesca Associates contract for the RFP 18-51 Central Street SSA, the feasibility study. Staff recommends the City Council's approval for the change order with Tesca Associates for that RFP, and that's in the dollar amount of $9,755.60. I'd also like to move item A7, which is Resolution 93-R19, authorizing the execution of the employee contract with Erica Storley to serve as the interim city manager for the city of Evanston. I'm going to read this. Staff recommends the City Council's adoption of Resolution 93-R19, authorizing the execution of the employment contract with Erica Storley to serve as our interim city manager for the city of Evanston. On September 16, 2019, the City Council met in executive session to discuss and review and approve the terms of the contract. That's for action. Alderman Suffren?
No, pull it, please.
Pull it? Okay. Item A8 is off. Item A9 is Resolution 30-R10, 30-
Just so I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, Alderman Suffren, were you pulling A7 or A8?
A8.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to move item A9, which is Resolution 30-R-19.
Can you take that one off? I have a question.
And that one is also removed at the request of Alderman Fleming. I'd like to move item A10, Resolution 32-R-19, authorizing the city manager to execute a gift agreement and the use agreement
take that one
with
off, please?
and item A10 is off at the request of Alderman Fleming. I'd like to move, Mr. Mayor, Member City Council, item A11, Resolution 90-R-19, authorizing a 3-year agreement with North Shore Senior Center for room G205 at the Morton Civic Center. And that is going to be, is that the 3-year? Yeah, that's the 3-year at $563. And then I'd also finally move item A12, which is Resolution 91-R19, authorizing city manager to enter into a lease agreement. I think this one is for 3 months with Studio B11. Yeah, that's all of them. Oh, no. A13. I'd like to move item A13, Resolution 92-R-19, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Hoffman House Catering for the senior meal food programs at the Levy Center at Fleetwood Community Jordan Center. That dollar amount is not to exceed $4.80 per lunch, and the contract value is for $43,543. I'd also like to move item A14. Excuse me. Moving item A14, the request of Alderman Fisk. Item A13 is for introduction, excuse me, thank you. Item A15 is for introduction and action. It's ordinance 107-0-19 and 108-0-19, proposing the establishment of a special services area number 7 and number 8 in the city of Evanston, Illinois, and providing for a public hearing and other related procedures. Item A16 is the ordinance 109-19, 109 20-0-19, proposing an extension of the Special Services Area Number 4 in the city of Evanston, Illinois, and providing for a public hearing and other related services. That is for action and introduction. Item A. And suspension of the rules. Thank you. Item A17 is.
Hold that, please.
Okay. Item A17 is off at the request of Alderman Suffredin. It's not working. Thank you. Item A18 is ordinance 88-0-19, amending the section of Title 10, Chapter 11, Schedule 12, parking meter zones, adding a portion of Madison Street. Item A19 is ordinance 94-0-19, amending the portions of the City Code Section 10-11-10, Schedule XC, 2-hour limited parking. And then item A20 is ordinance 84-0-19, amending Title 10, Chapter 11, Section 10, Schedule XC, 2-hour limited parking. That's over on Garrett Place. A21 is ordinance. I did do A20. Oh, no worries. Item A21 is ordinance 85-0-19, amending Title 10, Chapter 11, Section 10, Schedule XF, residential exemption parking in G. And that's going to, the ordinance will add 3 additional spaces on Maple north side of Foster to District G. I'd like to move item A22, ordinance 91-0-19, amending various sections of Title 10, Chapter 11 pertaining to the City of Evanston's parking lots. This ordinance amends Title 10-17 pertaining to the parking lot, and I think that's over on Howard Street, if I'm correct. Oh, excuse me, 825 Hinman. That removes, yep, and Howard, as construction is complete. Item A23 is ordinance 87-0-19, proposing the consideration of scheduling of dates for a joint review board meeting and public hearing to consider the proposed First Amendment to the Howard and Ridge TIF District redevelopment. So I'm going to read that. Staff recommends the City Council approve the ordinance and establishing dates for the public hearing, and that's for action. That's it.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Ruth Simmons, can you take us to planning and development, economic development, and then appointments?
Yes, P1, the Housing and Homelessness Commission and staff recommend approval of renewal contract with Metropolitan Tenant Organization and Lawyers Committee. And then not to exceed amount of $70,000 for a tenant, landlord-tenant services. The funding source is in the city's affordable housing fund. That's for action. P2, the Plan Commission, Preservation Commission, and staff recommend adoption of Ordinance 115-019 for approval of a special use to expand community center, public and recreation center, public, and for a planned development to demolish 2 single-family residence-style structures and construct a 2-story entrance addition abutting the south facade of the existing YWCA. It's for action.
For introduction.
For introduction. P3, that we had a suspension of the rules. That is ordinance 105-019, application for major zoning relief to expand a legally non-conforming structure at 3101 Central Street. P4, ordinance 106-019, granting a special use permit for daycare center, domestic animal, and kennel at 1245 Hartree Avenue for introduction. P5 is ordinance 114-019, granting a special use permit for a planned development located at 1012 to 1018 Church Street in the D3 Downtown Core Development District. It's for introduction. A1, Resolution 89R19, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement with Mutt-Lark Theater.
Can we pull that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Appointments?
And appointments.
Yes. Parks, Recreation, Community Service Board, Patricia Gregory, and that's it.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Can someone put forward the motion to suspend the rules? So moved. For action. Is there a second? Is there a concern, Alderman Fisk?
Yes, I wanted to suspend the rules on
a particular
item.
one?
Yeah.
That's still on the agenda. That's on the consent agenda?
Yeah, I pulled it off the consent agenda.
Oh, you pulled it off.
In order to.
Oh, in order to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to just?
We can just do it when it comes around.
Okay, we'll just do it when it comes around. Okay, so that was to suspend the rules for introduction and action this evening was moved by Alderman Suffren and seconded by somebody. Who seconded it? We're just suspending the rules right now. Alderman Nguyen, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. City Clerk, could you please take the roll on the consent agenda?
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Aye. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
All right, the consent agenda passes 9-0. The Evanston City Council, we're now going to move to the items that were taken off the agenda. Alderman Braithwaite, if you could take us to A8.
Yes. Since Mayor, members of the City Council, I'd like to move item A8, Resolution 86-R19, adopting outside counsel litigation procedures and billing guidelines. Staff recommends City Council's adoption of this resolution to approve the outside counsel litigation procedures and billing guidelines for action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Alderman Suffren?
Sure. I just have a question. The document is silent on, what's the criteria for when we decide, or you decide, to engage outside counsel?
Well, the document, I'm sorry, good evening, Michelle Mason, Cup City Attorney. There are limited circumstances in which we engage outside counsel. Typically, how it's been done in the past is that we handle the matter in-house unless we have a conflict or it's a special type of case. And we notify the city manager if we seek to hire outside counsel for any other reason other than that. The guidelines basically follow that protocol. We would notify the council that we think that it's needed, and we follow the guidelines.
Okay. You would notify the council before you engage outside counsel, or that outside counsel has been engaged?
The proposed guidelines anticipate that we would notify outside counsel after it's been engaged. If you would like a change in that, just let us know.
Is that practically, does that tie your hands too much, or is that something that can be accomplished?
Some of the cases have to have a pretty quick turnaround in terms of litigation. So it depends on what the matter is. For most cases, we do need to move pretty quickly because you need to get an answer on file if it's a litigation case.
Okay. My concern is how far down the road we get before there's any elected official involvement.
Understood.
And so I don't know, from a practical standpoint, how do we make the maximum amount of elected official input while still enabling you to do your job? And I don't know if it's something that can be worked out before January 1st when this goes into effect, and we could hold this and come back, or if it's just an impossibility.
No, we can work it out. If you want to hold it, we can bring it back on the 14th. I can talk to you after the meeting.
Okay, if that would be acceptable, or if you all want to vote yes tonight, and I could vote no, that's fine too. Whatever makes most sense.
I have no objection.
Just hold it.
Second.
All right.
We value your input, Alderman Suffredin.
So A8 is held, and the city attorney will talk to Alderman Suffredin, and this will come back at a certain point. All right, so that's held. Alderman Braithwaite, A9.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to move item A9 for action, Resolution 30-R-19, authorizing the city manager to execute a gift agreement and use agreement with the Chicago Youth Americans Hockey Organization for the donation of the Robert Crown Community Center, new Robert Crown.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Alderman Wilson. Oh, no, sorry. Okay. Any discussion? Alderman Fleming?
Yeah, so I'm looking to support this. I just have a couple of questions I thought I wanted to ask for clarity. One thing that I will address that the public mentioned was about the skate time. So just looking at, for the sake of accurate information, looking at Northbrook, they charge $3.25 an hour, and think this is Winnetka. I can't even read my own. I think it's Winnetka. They charge $2.35 for an hour and a half. So just for the record, our prices, I think, are more than that, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, one was 4 or something. But anyway, Ms. Storley, I know Mr. Hemingway isn't here, but if you can kind of, I know the schedule, can you talk about the schedule a bit? I know we have the schedule for these 2 entities. I am happy to see that there's some after-school time and some what would typically be during school time for our younger residents who want to skate. But can you address some lack or where we might see some public skating on Saturday and Sunday? And I know the schedule is still coming together, but I would want to make sure we have public skate time on Saturday and Sunday when I assume more of our residents are going to be around and maybe wanting to skate.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city manager, and deputy city clerk. Erica Storley, assistant city manager. I know Lawrence isn't here tonight. He's at a conference. But if he were here, I know he would speak to how the great lengths that his team has gone through to work with all the ice rink users to try to come to a compromise that everybody can be happy about. So, you know, I remember speaking with the after-school and preschool users of Crown, and them saying to me that their favorite, one of their favorite parts about their kids being at the after-school program and the preschool program was that they had access to the ice. And so we've maintained that ice skating access for the after-school program and for the kids during the day at the preschool, as well as all of the other users. I mean, the great thing about the new facility is that there will be these 2 large sheets of ice, whereas right now we only have a sheet and a half, and one rink has a curtain that splits it into 2. So in a sense, we're going to have the ability to have a greater usage of all of the ice times than we currently have, because at some times we'll have 3 different uses going on at the same time. So Lawrence hasn't completely solidified the entirety of the schedule, but he's carved out blocks for future uses of both city programming and then public skate and then practice times for ice skaters and on all of that. So I would say he's probably 75% done with the entirety of the schedule, but I don't think that he has finalized what exactly his programs will be come spring. And this schedule that is in the packet for this evening is just covering the hockey season, which is when there's the most competition for the ice time. So we don't anticipate there will be any issue providing a multitude of ice times for the non-hockey season. But we are trying to work with all the users to come up with a good compromise, because we are trying to maximize the revenues during that prime revenue generating season.
Okay, so I look forward to seeing the weekend schedule. I know I did a little notation here, and I know Sunday has a little more time than Saturday thus far, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Looks like every day during the week there's skating open to the public till at least 6, which will be the time our after-school students get there from South Evanston, so I appreciate that. My other question, can you clarify, looks like CYA is making their payment over 7 years, but they have naming rights or their logo on the ice for 10 years. So why don't we match those 2 up?
So the way that the naming rights are working is that, you know, usually the entity that's purchasing the naming rights is dictating what sort of schedule they can accommodate. So for instance, the Valley Produce Lobby, they're paying their payment, I believe it's over 15 years. So the, trying to figure out the best way to say this, there isn't a one-to-one ratio of the amount of time that an entity gets for a naming right for the amount of time that they're paying for it. It's just, here's the identified price for what that naming right is, and then here's the schedule that makes sense for that user to pay. So, you know, Evanston Hockey, I think, has a smaller donation for the exact same thing, but they're getting the 10 years as well. So it's just not the philosophy of you pay for it on an annual basis. We'd prefer to get as much of the money up front as possible and give the naming right over the period of time that's been identified.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Wilson?
Thank you. And yeah, I think it was noted generally, but the Evanston-oriented program is paying less for the per hour than the non-Evanston-oriented one. So I think that, you know, is reflecting the effort to make sure that it's more affordable for the Evanston programs. I've spent more time and I care to remember as a parent of a figure skater and as of a hockey player. So I don't know that there's anybody more qualified than I am to know about, taking kids and watching kids practice figure skating and hockey. Figure skaters generally go early morning. It seems to be when their coaches and their training takes place. So, there's not as much overlap on the hockey time slots. So I'm not as concerned about that. But, certainly it appears that there will be significant time for the general community to use it. But of course, the general business model here is to have more ice time available and to rent more ice time out and to generate more revenue to help pay for this rather expensive endeavor. So we need to make money to pay for it, and that's part of the business model.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Rainey.
Just to clarify the position of Evanston Hockey on these, what is the initial CY, whatever, their use is everybody compatible?
Yes, everybody is happy with the.
They've agreed
with the schedule,
okay.
and they have gotten all their needs
Can you
met.
tell us a little bit about the vilification of the group that was here tonight? I mean, some very ugly things said about their reputation. I mean, is there a problem with them? And do they have lots of Evanston residents in their group?
There were some high school student athletes who came to APW to talk about their experiences, and they were very positive. CYA is an organization that brings a lot of girls into their programs, which is a good thing. And my experience with them has been overall very positive. I think that they're very dedicated to what they do, and I think that they try to do it at a very high level.
But are there a lot of Evanston residents in CYA?
That's my understanding. That's why they want to be in Evanston.
Right. So that's what I'm so concerned about. It sounds like they're from other states even when people are discussing them. I mean, they are Evanston residents, taxpaying Evanston residents, and I think we should support them. Yes.
Great. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. I was actually going to wait until called awards to raise this issue. But since we're on the topic, I wanted to share something. There was a speaker earlier that made a comment about black and brown kids. I'm not sure exactly what he said, but I'm going to paraphrase it. And when I walked away with it, that as an elitist sports, that somehow black and brown kids don't have access to it like any other kid. And as a parent whose kids competed at a higher level, not only is it a commitment of resources, but it's also a real commitment of time. And I just want to correct something that Dr. Gate, who is sat next to, what was the gentleman's name?
Del Morris.
Del, the black man. Thank you.
Del Morris.
They spend approximately $50,000 of scholarships that they provide annually. So I don't know who you are in touch with, but the Second Ward borders Robert Crown. So if there are families that you know of that for whatever reason the finances are a barrier, I would encourage you I would love to know who they are. So if they truly want to get involved with hockey, there is an avenue. So I would welcome those names, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more, Alderman Fleming.
Let's have a quick, do you know when the full schedule will be out? Or do you have an idea? I know Lawrence is working on it.
Yeah, I would expect within the next 30 to 60 days.
Okay, and then do you know if Northwestern, I know that they're purchasing ice time or whatever we're going to call it. Would it be earlier than the 6 p.m.? Do you anticipate them being earlier than 6 p.m. during the weeknight?
Their times have already been worked into the schedule. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I have it written down so I can get that to you.
But hopefully they're not doing that after school time. We factored that in already.
Oh, no.
Okay,
no.
perfect. Okay.
They prefer to be
late.
But yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Eric, so that was a promoted question. So these companies or the organizations that are donating for naming rights, are they prepaying for ice time or are they just paying for the naming rights? So you're probably going to answer my question, which is, are they prepaying for the naming rights? In addition to that, they'll also be paying for the ice time?
Yeah, so both entities that we're discussing here tonight are paying a donation,
Okay.
and then they are also paying for their usage. So the donation is paid over the period of time, I believe it's 7 years.
Right.
And then the ice time is paid on a monthly basis.
I think that's
So
important that
they're all
people-
paying for their usage, which is absolutely critical. So
yes.
we have ongoing stable revenue to make the center thrive, and then we also have the naming rights that support the capital donation.
I think for some reason, and I could be wrong, but people are confusing the two and merging the two, thinking that Northwestern's payment is for their naming rights and also future ice time, and you've just made that very clear to us.
Yeah, I
Thank
was
you.
just speaking to the two groups tonight. Northwestern is still in progress, and I don't have any.
Crystal clear. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no more lights, A9 was moved and seconded. City Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Ruth Simmons. Aye. Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
All right. A9 Resolution 30-R-19, authorizing the city manager to execute a gift agreement and use agreement with Chicago Young Americans Hockey Organization for the donation of the Robert Crown Community Center, passes the Evanston City Council on a 9-0 vote. All right.
Mr. Mayor, just so you know, Mr. Hemingway is at the National Parks and Rec Conference, is spending his evening watching our meeting, and he has just texted to say that the Northwestern University times are on 10 p.m.
All right. Alderman Braithwaite, could you take us to A10?
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, I'd like to move item A10, Resolution 32-R-19, authorize the city manager to execute a gift, what time is it? 9:15, not 10. A gift agreement and use agreement with the Evanston Youth Hockey Association for the donation of a new Robert Crown Community Center.
Second.
All right.
And I pulled that one off, but I already have my questions answered, so I'm happy.
All right. Thank you. So seeing no lights, City Clerk, could you take the roll, please, on Resolution 32-R-19?
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. Aye. Alderman Ravel. Aye. Alderman Rainey. Aye. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
All right, Resolution 32-R-19, authorizing the use and the execution for the gift and use agreement for Evanston Youth Hockey Association, passes 9-0. Alderman Braithwaite, can you take us to A14?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to, at the request of Alderman Fisk, move item A14 for introduction and action. Ordinance 111-0-19, amending Title 10, Chapter 11, Section 10, Schedule XF1, Residential Exception Parking, District B.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Michelle, so the way that was just introduced, even though it's slightly different than here, can we just take the vote, or do we have to do a suspending the rules for action vote?
For action.
What happened at ANPW? Was it just introduced?
Yeah.
All right, so let's just can we just move the action of suspending the rules for action, and then we'll take the vote?
Right.
Okay. So moved.
So move suspension of the rules.
Okay.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the rules have been suspended. This item's for introduction and action. It was introduced and seconded. Can I just do a voice vote on this?
Yep.
Yeah, or no? Yes, I can. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, A14 passes, and that was for introduction and action on a 9-0 vote. Could you take us to A17?
Yep. At the request of Alderman Severn, this is removed. I'd like to move item A17, Ordinance 89-019, amending the municipal retailer's occupation tax to increase the rate from 1% to 1.25.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. This is items open for discussion. Alderman Sufferton?
Sure. I just say, I think we should be really careful about doing this. Along with our downtown parking problems, this is just another reason for people to choose to spend their money elsewhere. And so I know that we have to get it done by October 1st if it's going to happen, but I just would really caution my colleagues about undertaking this. Sales taxes are the most regressive tax. It's just another thing that's going to give residents who are trying to decide where to spend their money a reason to spend it elsewhere.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fleming, then Alderman Wilson.
So I'm interested, I have a concern about putting this in the general fund. I know what the general fund is used for, but I feel like during this time where we've had a couple of rough budget years and we're hoping to not have as bad one this year, I would be more comfortable designating some of this increase to affordable housing or something that we hear our residents really passionate about, where we at this point don't have a steady stream of money coming in to meet the need. I haven't worked out the math. I know that we need to put some of this in the general fund, but I'm just not comfortable kind of having this blanket check to the general fund. I think our residents will be much more inclined to understand and support this if they know it's going towards something that we've made a goal that they consistently talk to us about, that we've said is important and that we're going to work on. Okay. So I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think I'd like to have a longer conversation about how to do that versus just saying general fund. And I think the packet did lay out I don't have it in front of me, a couple of other kind of vague line items, but nothing specific that I could show my residents, where their money's going.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Wilson, then Fisk.
And I generally agree with Alderman Suffern's comments about these are regressive taxes, but at the same time, I'm totally mindful of the fact that when it comes time to do the budget, we will never pass a property tax or other tax increase. And the fact of the matter is, every year everything costs more. So if we stayed the same services every year, let's say the inflation rate's 2%, $300 million budget, we need $6 million every year. So $6 million a year to find or cut is significant, and that's why we struggle every year. So we're not bad people, we're not trying to hurt people, we're just trying to do the responsible thing. So because there is a deadline, we've got this cutoff date to implement this, I would reluctantly support it. I have a general sense that with regard to the alcohol tax that we have in place at 6%, adding another 0.25% to that, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's just really piling on. So not tonight, but at some point down the future, I'm likely to suggest maybe dropping down that alcohol tax by the 0.25% so that nets out. But I'd like to see the numbers first, so I'm not going to actually suggest that at this point, just raise that as a concern. So yeah, we need to bring in the money, and we need to do that in some way, and we need to be transparent. So if we're not going to do the other taxes, this is something we'll need to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Alderman Fisk, and then Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as I voted before, when I had an introduction, and I voted against this, this is just another reason for people not to shop in Evanston. And who this hurts, as the representative from the chamber said at the last meeting, I mean, this hurts small businesses. I mean, the very businesses we're trying to get to stay. And to think that the shoppers don't recognize when they're paying more sales tax is ridiculous, because they do notice that. They notice parking, they notice sales tax, and they look at their options. And I just think this is a really bad idea. And it's, I'm surprised that there aren't more people here tonight speaking against this, but we did hear from them via the chamber and their outreach to their members, and it was overwhelming, the number of business owners that said that this would be something that they would not support and were actually vocally opposing.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Nguyen, then Alderman Rainey.
Well, I tend to agree with everybody. This is a very regressive tax, but short of a property tax increase than what are some of our other alternatives. We increased parking left and right last year, and we are endlessly hearing how difficult that has made things for so many people. And when I look at the list of our surrounding communities, with the exception of Wilmette, which is still at 10, almost every other direction, it's Chicago, Skokie, Niles, Morton Grove,
Lincolnwood, they're at 10.25. The only possible advantage I can see with this is that this captures non-Evanstonians who are spending money here. Whereas if we increase the property tax, that is only Evanstonians.
Right.
So when I balance that, then I would say I would support the 1.25 because as Alderman Wilson said, we need to continue to find these revenue streams. I also share his concern about increasing the liquor tax. People tend to be very sensitive to that as well. I don't feel like a very bad person, but I wish there were other ways that we could figure out revenue streams, but at least someone else who's driving in from Highland Park is going to pay for this. So I'd rather do it that way.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Rainey.
Well, whether you live in Highland Park and you shop in Evanston, or whether you live in Evanston and you shop in Evanston, you're going to pay the tax. So, you know, it gets everybody. So it doesn't relieve any Evanstonian from the increase. So, I mean, that's a bad argument. But you've got to consider it costs the city over $333 million a year to run the city. And last year's tax levy was $49,712,625. So subtract that from $333 million. We've got to raise the balance somehow. I don't want to do that. We've got to raise revenue someplace. We can't keep identifying ways to spend money without identifying ways to raise revenue or find places to save money. And I hate the idea of doing this. Some of the restaurateurs in this town are my favorite people. We add 1 penny to their liquor tax and they're going to go crazy. I mean, you look at what those people are contributing to our revenue stream. It's huge. It's really huge. I mean, we've got to find a way to get to some of these other folks that are really skating through life. We've got to consider, I mean, I've been looking at what Lori Lightfoot is saying. You know, some of these professionals, they're living the life in this town and they're not paying a penny to be here. I mean, we don't even charge them a business license. We just have to think of some creative ways. I don't think we can increase parking meters. I don't know what we're going to do. Gasoline, I don't know. But I think we have to encourage more restaurants to come here. We've just got to increase businesses, and we've got to start being stronger when people oppose our developments. People who want to build here, we've got to support them. We've got to figure out ways to help them do projects that are good projects for this city. I mean, I saw the other day where the Marion project was turned down by Dapper. You know, we've got to increase the tax base. I agree totally with Councilor Sufferton and with Alderman Wilson. This business of adding on to the sales tax is not a good idea, but we have a problem.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fisk.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to take a breath here because for the past year and more, I've been talking about increasing revenue, and thank you, Alderman Rainey, you were absolutely right. I don't agree with you on the Marion project, but
I mean, maybe it can be fixed.
Well, we're not even there yet. But when we talk about revenue, I mean, we turned down the office development on the library parking lot that would have brought in 500 office workers in the downtown. Spending money, sales tax meant that we didn't have to raise the sales tax. And I just think we've got to start thinking in broader, more holistic terms when we're looking at projects like that. So the Women's Club objected, the WCTU objected. Now, there are other folks lined up to develop that lot, and I hear from them all the time. Not another office development, but certainly residential development, which is not going to provide us the same kind of income that the office workers would be providing. We just have to be smarter than that. And as I said at the time, I won't vote to nickel and dime our residents like this. I think that this honestly puts small businesses at a disadvantage. I've been there, I've done that, I know that. And we can't have more of them close. So as Alderman Rainey says, let's look for ways that we can support finding revenue. But I think if I stop and think about it, and I probably will when I go home, I mean, there certainly have been three different times over this past year when there have been opportunities for significant revenue that we've turned down here for whatever reason. As I heard Design Evanston up here the last time, and I don't mean to pick on this, and I wasn't planning on talking about it, but they were talking about their vision for the library parking lot. That was basically the vision of what had been presented, except they made the comment of, you know what, height doesn't really bother us. And I was astounded at that. So we had an opportunity there to really make a difference and really increase revenue, and the council voted it down. So folks, you just have to figure this out. I'm doing the best I can to increase revenue, and I will continue to talk about this, but you've got to start thinking a little bit more realistically about where we are financially.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Rainey.
Yeah, and I hope we all realize what's coming before us with the library. When I read about the 8+% that they're going to present to us, and I'm thinking back what our fleeing city manager told us is that their budget is a hands-off budget. We have no control over that. Is that a true story? Would you remind us of our role in their budget?
Yes, Alderman Rainey, members of the council approves the levy. So you either approve the levy or you do not approve the levy.
We can't tinker with it?
It's either up or down.
And if it's down, then they have to go and
if they wish the city to levy a property tax, yes, they have to come back and get with a proposal that the council will agree to.
But if we turn down the one they present, do they get the one they had previously?
No, they have to do it, and Tesh, correct me if I'm wrong, that they have to file, the city has to file with the county annually. If the levy is not filed, it will not be assessed. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. Good evening, mayors, members of the city council. Yes, you're right. So we file the tax levy. A tax levy comes to the city council, and city council approves the tax levy.
Because from time to time, you'll read an article about something that's happened in a community where either the community tax levy wasn't either approved properly or not in a timely manner, and then all of a sudden the county says they're not assessing. So yes, the library, it's an up or down. And if it's down, then there, at least certainly in other communities, we've had that once or twice here where there's then discussions between the library board and city council and staff from both entities.
That's going to be very painful, and it's not going to hurt anybody who lives in Wilmette.
Okay. Seeing no more lights on this item, A17, Ordinance 89-0-19, amending the municipal retail's occupation tax to increase the rate assessed from 1% to 1.25 has been moved and seconded. City Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
No.
Alderman Ravel. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
No.
Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Wynn.
Okay. Ordinance A17, item A17, Ordinance 89-0-19, amending the municipal retail's occupation tax to increase the rate assessed from 1% to 1.25%, passed the Evanston City Council on a 5-4 vote. Alderman Ruth Simmons, could you take us to 01? Which is under economic development.
The Economic Development Committee recommends City Council adoption Resolution 89R19, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement with Mudlark Theater to provide funding for the Equity in the Arts hiring program for a second final year at a total cost of $25,000. Staff recommends utilizing the Economic Development Workforce Development Fund. This is for action.
Second. Okay, Alderman Nguyen seconded. This is open for discussion. Alderman Fleming?
I'm going to vote no, as I did last year. I just want to explain that has nothing to do with Mudlark or equity or anything like that. I just don't think we should be paying people to hire diverse candidates. I think if you want to hire a diverse candidate, and you should, living in this community, you should do that. I think there's many ways that the city supports our nonprofits, our arts community, our business community, but paying for you to diversify your staff should just be what you do, and we should not be using taxpayer dollars for that.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Seeing no more lights, City Clerk, could you take the roll, please, on Resolution 89-R-19?
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. No. Alderman Ravel. Aye. Alderman Rainey. Aye. Alderman Fleming. No. Alderman Fisk. Aye. Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen.
All right, this resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement with Mudlark Theater passes the Evanston City Council on a 7-2 vote. All right, we're now going to move to call of the wards. Alderman, the appointment we did. That was approved on the consent agenda. So we're going to move now to roll call. We'll start with Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. For those who've not heard, Stephen Demarest passed away on Saturday. Steve Demarest, Karen Demarest's husband. So really just a nice, genuine guy. The people who knew him, he'll be greatly missed.
He served on the Evanston Arts Council.
He was on the Evanston Arts Council. He very well-known, respected choir professor and working at Northwestern. So just very, very sad.
Thank you for mentioning that, Don. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. There have been a couple folks reach out with concerns on us not having our MWEBE meeting and ask for explanation. We did not have quorum. That meeting was on the same date as the Evanston mashup. I'm working to get a date as soon as possible, as soon as we can get quorum, to reschedule that meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Sufferton?
No report.
Alderman Ravel?
Just a quick reminder that I'm having a 7th Ward meeting this coming Thursday at the Ecology Center at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
A reminder that Bike the Ridge is Sunday, the 29th. Everybody is encouraged to attend. Starts at 9 o'clock and ends at 1 o'clock.
Thank you. Alderman Fleming?
No report.
Alderman Fisk? No report. Alderman Braithwaite? Top of the meeting, I'd mentioned Blink Fitness just opened up in the 2nd Ward in Valley. Brand new gym, huge footprint, and it's $1 to join and $15 a month. Maybe worth checking out. I might just get in shape for that price.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen.
No report.
All right, Alderman Wilson, could you lead us into executive session?
Mr. Mayor, before we go, just a calendar check. You have a meeting scheduled for the 30th. We wanted to make sure that we'll have quorum. I understand Alderman Nguyen is unable to attend. Is any other member of the council unable to attend on the 30th? All right, so we will move forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman Wilson, could you lead us into executive session?
Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding litigation and security procedures. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. The exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C8, and C11.
Is there a second? City Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
All right, on a 9-0 vote, the City Council is going to recess into executive session. Thank you, everybody, for coming out, and thank you, Wally Bobkowitz, for a fine last meeting of the Evanston City Council.